Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom had earned the nickname of the Grandmother of Europe for the many grandchildren she had. She had 42 grandchildren in total. This video will focus on the lives of the children of Princess Beatrice of the United Kingdom, Queen Victoria's youngest daughter. Alexander Mountbatten, 1st Marquess of Carisbrooke, was born on the 23rd of November 1886 as Prince Alexander of Battenberg. He was the eldest child of Princess Beatrice of the United Kingdom and Prince Henry of Battenberg. He was nicknamed Drino by his family and grew up with 3 siblings: Victoria, Eugenie, Leopold and Maurice. Alexander was raised in his grandmother's household and moved between Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Balmoral Castle and Osborne House. When Alexander was 9 years old, his father passed away from malaria. Queen Victoria then gave apartments in Kensington Palace to Alexander and his family. After the Queen's death in 1901, Kensington Palace became their primary residence, along with Osborne Cottage. Alexander was educated at Stubbington House School, and following this he attended Wellington College. From 1902 to 1908, Alexander served in the Royal Navy, and in 1911 he joined the British Army. He was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant in the Grenadier Guards and was promoted to lieutenant in 1913. In 1915, he was promoted to captain. During the First World War, Alexander's youngest brother, Maurice, was killed in action. After George V issued his letters patent in 1917, Alexander and his brother Leopold relinquished their German styles and titles and anglicised their name to Mountbatten. Alexander was created Marquess of Carisbrooke, and Leopold was granted the rank of precedence of the younger son of a Marquess, becoming Lord Leopold Mountbatten. On the 19th of July 1917, Alexander married Lady Irene Denison, the only daughter of William Denison, 2nd Earl of Londonsborough. Because the wedding was held during the First World War, there was no formal reception. Together they had 1 daughter, Iris, born in 1920. In 1919, Alexander resigned from the British Army and was placed in the General Reserve as a captain. He started a career in business and worked as a clerk in the offices of the bank Lazard Brothers. Alexander also worked for the Metropolitan Housing Corporation. He later became the director of Lever Brothers. During the Second World War, Alexander joined the Royal Air Force and served as an officer. After the war, Alexander lived at the King's Cottage and Kensington Palace. In 1956, Irene passed away and her remains were cremated. Alexander died 4 years later on the 23rd of February 1960 from a cerebral hemorrhage at the age of 73. His remains were cremated and placed in the wall above his parents' tomb at St. Mildred's Church on the Isle of Wight. Victoria Eugenie, Queen of Spain, was born Princess Victoria Eugenie of Battenberg on the 24th of October 1887 at Balmoral Castle. She was the only daughter of Princess Beatrice of the United Kingdom and Prince Henry of Battenberg. She was also Queen Victoria's youngest granddaughter. She was nicknamed Ina by her family and grew up with 3 brothers, Alexander, Leopold and Maurice. Victoria Eugenie was raised in her grandmother's household and moved between Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Balmoral Castle and Osborne House. When Victoria Eugenie was 8 years old, her father passed away from malaria. Queen Victoria then gave apartments in Kensington Palace to Victoria Eugenie and her family. After the Queen's death in 1901, Kensington Palace became their primary residence, along with Osborne Cottage. In 1905, Victoria Eugenie met King Alfonso XIII of Spain while he was visiting the United Kingdom. They began writing to each other and fell in love. Several issues arose that would need to be resolved before marriage would be considered between the two. First, the threat of haemophilia. Victoria Eugenie's brother Leopold had haemophilia, and there was a greater understanding at the time of how haemophilia could be inherited. So there was a good chance that Victoria Eugenie could pass it on to any future children she would have. Alfonso did not seem too concerned about this. The bigger obstacles were Victoria Eugenie's religion and status. Victoria Eugenie was Protestant, but was willing to convert to Catholicism, and her uncle, Edward VII, elevated Victoria Eugenie to a royal highness, so there was no question of an unequal marriage. These acts appeased Alfonso's mother, and the engagement was announced. The couple were wed on the 31st of May 1906 in Madrid. Following the ceremony, as the party were returning to the royal palace, an assassination attempt was made on the king and the new queen. Both Alfonso and Victoria Eugenie were unharmed, but several guards and bystanders were killed or injured. Over the course of their marriage, Victoria Eugenie and Alfonso had 7 children. Alfonso, Jamie, Beatrice, Fernando, Maria Cristina, Juan, and Gonzalo. Alfonso and Gonzalo both inherited haemophilia. King Alfonso blamed Victoria Eugenie, and it began a rift in their marriage that never healed. Victoria Eugenie began working with charities and took an interest in nursing and hospital care. She reorganized the Spanish Red Cross and helped to advance the healthcare system in Spain. While her relationship with Alfonso deteriorated over time, Victoria Eugenie became beloved by the Spanish people. In 1931, the Second Spanish Republic was established, and Victoria Eugenie and her family went into exile. They moved to France, Italy, and England. Victoria Eugenie and her husband went their separate ways. Despite their separation, Victoria Eugenie still cared deeply about Alfonso and worried about his health. He passed away in 1941, surrounded by his family. Victoria Eugenie eventually settled in Switzerland. Her later life was spent enjoying time with her grandchildren and socializing. In 1968, Victoria Eugenie returned to Spain for the first time since going into exile in 1931. This was one of her last public appearances. She returned home to Switzerland and her health began to fail. She passed away on the 15th of April 1969, on the exact same day she had left Spain in 1931. Her funeral was held in Switzerland and she was buried in the cemetery Bois de Vaux. In April 1985, her grandson, King Juan Carlos, had her remains interred in Spain. Lord Leopold Mountbatten was born Prince Leopold of Battenberg on the 21st of May 1889 at Windsor Castle. He was the 3rd child of Princess Beatrice of the United Kingdom and Prince Henry of Battenberg. He grew up with 3 siblings. Leopold was raised in his grandmother's household and moved between Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Balmoral Castle and Osborne House. When Leopold was 6 years old, his father passed away from malaria. After the Queen's death in 1901, Kensington Palace became their primary residence, along with Osborne Cottage. Ironically, Leopold was named for his uncle Leopold, who also had haemophilia. Because of this, Leopold would have been disqualified from active service in the military, but he wanted to serve. In 1909, he joined the 8th Isle of Wight Rifles Battalion. In 1912, he joined the King's Royal Rifle Corps. During the First World War, Leopold's activities were restricted to a non-combat staff appointment. 2 months after the war began, Leopold's younger brother Maurice was killed in action. After George V issued his letters patent in 1917, Leopold and his brother Alexander relinquished their German titles and styles and anglicised their name to Mountbatten. Alexander was created Marquess of Carisbrooke, and Leopold was granted the rank and precedence of the younger son of a Marquess, becoming Lord Leopold Mountbatten. After the war, Leopold returned to London and lived with his mother in Kensington Palace. Following a hip operation, Leopold appeared to be recovering well, but his condition deteriorated and he passed away on the 23rd of April 1922 at the age of 32. Prince Maurice of Battenberg was born on the 3rd of October 1891 at Balmoral Castle. He was the fourth and youngest child of Princess Beatrice of the United Kingdom and Prince Henry of Battenberg. He grew up with 3 siblings. Maurice was the youngest grandchild and grandson of Queen Victoria. Maurice was raised in his grandmother's household and moved between Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Balmoral Castle and Osborne House. When Maurice was just 4 years old, his father passed away from malaria. He was the same age his mother had been when her father, Prince Albert, had died in 1861. After the Queen's death in 1901, Kensington Palace became their primary residence, along with Osborne Cottage. Maurice greatly resembled his father and was his mother's favourite child. He attended Lockers Park School and then Wellington College. In 1900, Maurice was greatly distressed when he found out his cousin, Prince Christian Victor of Schleswig-Holstein, had died while participating in the Boer War. Christian Victor had served with Maurice's father in the Anglo-Ashanti Wars. Maurice declared that he would join the same regiment as Christian Victor when he was old enough. He fulfilled this promise in 1910 and joined the 60th King's Royal Rifles. When the First World War started, Maurice and his brothers all served in the British Army. On the 27th of October 1914, Maurice was leading an attack on the German front line in West Flanders when he was mortally wounded by shrapnel. Maurice died before his men could bring him to a safer place. He was 23 years old. Upon hearing the news, King George V, who was Maurice's first cousin, and Queen Mary drove to Kensington Palace to console his aunt and Maurice's mother, Princess Beatrice. The Secretary of State offered to have Maurice's body brought back to England, but Beatrice refused, stating, "Let him lie with his comrades." A memorial service was held on the 5th of November 1914.